right, I wanted to say welcome. My name is Sabrina Filson. I'm the COO at Bill Lynch Associates. And Bill Lynch is the founder and CEO of BLA. He conceived of this idea for the breakfast series. His intention with it is to provide the opportunity for you to both connect with each other, but also to be inspired. And if you've attended prior breakfasts, you know that we've had some really great folks who've given us inspiring messages of how they've achieved in industry, but also giving back to the community at the same time. So a reoccurring theme that's been in discussion in our series has really been service. And it's been identifying needs in our community, figuring out how to make a commitment to giving back, and not just talking about it, but doing something and working actively towards solutions. Today, this is our third Uptown Power Breakfast, or UPB as we call it. I'm pleased to announce, and you know, that this is our first female speaker, so go, girl power, women power. Today, our speaker is Malaak Compton-Rock, and she's a woman who's made service, volunteerism, social responsibility, and social change a way of life. After beginning her career in public relations, special events, and the cosmetic industry, she worked for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, where she spearheaded and oversaw the special events and celebrity relations department. She remains proud of the fact that during her time at UNICEF, she was able to increase the organization's celebrity support by building relationships with celebrities and maintaining long-term relationships with them. So after witnessing changes in the welfare laws in this country, she decided that she was ready to start her own nonprofit organization that focused on providing services to women who were moving from welfare to work. And she started Style Works, which was an organization that provided comprehensive grooming services to women who were ready to make a transition in their lives. So in 2008, Malaak began to think about how to provide information to people on how to make a commitment to service a way of their lives. So she began and founded the Angel Rock Project, which she'll speak about, I'm sure, today. But it's an online e-village that promotes volunteerism, social responsibility, and sustainable change. And through the Angel Rock Project, information is provided on how to volunteer, advice on making monetary or in-kind donations, and provides links to life-changing nonprofit organizations. So in addition to all the work that she's done, Malaak is also a mother, a wife, a graduate of Howard University, a philanthropist, a social change activist, and a positive force for change in our community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Malaak Compton-Rock.
Good morning.
It is so great to be here. And, okay, so I'll have to hold it. This is a great forum, and so we're just gonna, I think, just have a little chat. And I think I'm gonna talk for about 15-20 minutes, and then hopefully we'll have a little Q&A. And you all will ask me some questions, and then we'll just have a little back and forth together. And when Bill asked me to come and talk about service, of course, and particularly in Harlem, it was absolutely my pleasure. Bill and I have the great pleasure of serving on the board of the Children's Defense Fund together, which is, for me, one of the greatest pleasures of my life. I grew up idolizing two people, Prince and Marion Wright Edelman. And the fact that I have gotten to meet both of them just like blows me over. I met Prince when my husband hosted the Oscars. And after the Oscars, Prince held a party. Y'all know after each Oscars, Prince holds a party at his house in LA. And Chris and I went over there, and do you guys realize that he made breakfast for us? Literally to this day, I cannot believe that. And when I worked for UNICEF, I had the pleasure of meeting Marian Wright Edelman. The first time that I met her, I was absolutely speechless. I could not talk because she has been my idol my entire life. And the fact that she asked me to serve on her board is just truly the highlight of my life. She also wrote the foreword to my first book. I don't consider myself an author at all. I only really know about one thing, and that is about service. And so it is the only thing I will ever write about. I don't think I'll ever write another book. I wrote a book 2 years ago called If It Takes a Village, Build One. My life and service in 100+ ways that you can serve too, and Marian Wright Edelman wrote the foreword to that book. But I'll back up a minute and talk about how why I serve and why I think it's so important for all of us to join the village of servers. I grew up in Oakland, California. I have a mama who raised a ruckus all over Berkeley, California in the 60s. She rallied and she picketed for her beliefs. She cares about the poor. She cares about the disenfranchised. She reminds me of those folks out there on Wall Street. She really does. And I was out there with her really probably when I was in her womb. And I picketed with her and I rallied with her. And so I really didn't have a chance but to care about those who were disenfranchised. Those in our community and those very far away. But I didn't realize that I would do it as a profession. I left Oakland, California, and I went to Howard University. And I actually majored in public relations. And while there, I wrote a letter after seeing an article in Essence magazine on a woman that I'm sure many of you have heard about, Terry Williams, the wonderful, wonderful PR madam. And I wrote Terry a letter and I said, you sound wonderful, can I work for you? And lo and behold, one night in my dorm room, at 1 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. And I picked it up and the woman on the end of the phone said, hi, my name is Terry Williams. Is Malaak Compton there? Yes. And I said, it is. And she said, if you want to come work for me, come on up and tell me why. And I got on the train, scraped up some money with my one suit, and came to New York that very next Monday and told her why I wanted to work for her. And she offered me an unpaid intern. And I had to decide whether I was going to take that unpaid intern or that paid job in Dallas. And I took the unpaid intern. And I worked for Terry and ended up getting a job that paid and worked in the entertainment industry. And after about 3 years, realized that though it was exciting and I learned an awful lot, that it didn't actually feed my soul the way that I wanted a job to feed my soul. And really thought about what is it that I want to do. I then made a career decision that actually made less sense for me than that, and I went into the cosmetics industry. Now, I've never met a product that I didn't like, and so I thought that made sense for me. I hated that job. I went to go work for Elizabeth Arden, and that lasted about a year, and I was very, very unhappy. Promoting a lipstick was the most boring job on the face of this earth for me. And so I said, okay, Malaak, what is it that you really want to do? And I realized that I was still a lifelong volunteer. Always, working with, at that time I was volunteering with Gay Men's Health Crisis. I was a hotline volunteer downtown. And that was very, very satisfying for me. And so I thought, could I actually make a living giving back? At the exact point that I was thinking that, I was looking in the New York Times. That was back in the time. You all remember when the job ads were actually in the want ads, and you sent your resume into a number, and you actually mailed it in. And there was a job that said wanted someone with a PR background, special events background, celebrity relations background, and the U.S. Fund for UNICEF. And I said, that job has me written all over it. And I sent my resume in. I didn't hear back for 3 months. And one day the phone rang. I went in, I interviewed all day, and I got that job. And that changed the trajectory of my entire life for 2 main reasons. A, it was the first time that I actually got a paycheck by giving back and helping others. UNICEF helps women and children in 160 of the world's most impoverished countries. And it was the first time that I set foot on the continent of Africa. I had the most immense pleasure of taking the actor Lawrence Fishburne to the countries of Sierra Leone, the Ivory Coast, and Ghana. We stepped foot in Liberia. We stepped foot in Liberia at the end of the 7-year civil war, when the country still had no electricity, no running water, with bombs still going off. The second we landed and got into a UN convoy, we heard in our Humvee that a UN truck had just been bombed. When we stayed at a UN encampment where we literally only had electricity 2 to 3 hours a day, where we couldn't flush toilets, and we were there to watch UN workers reunify child soldiers with their parents. Lawrence wanted to do this because he had been an actor, a child actor on the film Apocalypse Now, and that experience stayed with him. And so, as a UN ambassador, he wanted to work with child soldiers. But he and I, as descendants of slaves and as African Americans, experienced for the first time stepping foot on African soil. And we cried when we put our foots on that soil. And we cried when we helped to unify children, child soldiers, with their parents. And on that day, I knew that I would spend the rest of my life working in giving back and serving others. And so that experience was very, 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 very powerful for me. And so working for UNICEF and having that experience is why, really, honestly, I'm standing here today, and why I wrote the book, If It Takes a Village, Build One, and why I'm going to end up telling you the rest of my story. After leaving UNICEF, I started an organization called StyleWorks. That was around the time when Bill Clinton was our president, and he mandated that the states spend money changing the welfare to work laws. He mandated that each state spend money starting welfare to work programs. At that time, I remember very vividly watching a 60 Minutes program on a wonderful welfare to work program where women went to get makeovers, where they got clothing so that they could go back from welfare to work. And I remember seeing a woman who was getting out of jail, and she got a wonderful suit, but she had cornrows in her hair, and she had lots of rings on her fingers, and she had lots of jewelry on, and she had lots of earrings in her ears. And I just thought, this woman still probably won't get the job, because even though she has this suit on, her appearance is still going to block employment. And I thought, I wonder if there's something that I can help do to continue to help women change their outer appearance to match their inner confidence and get employment. So I started an organization called StyleWorks. And so what we did is that we got a group of about 120 stylists, makeup artists, hairstylists, and salon owners that were willing to donate their time on Sundays and Mondays when, as we know, beauty shops are normally closed, and they would allow us to come in and use their space without them costing them anything because they were normally closed, and get cosmetic companies and cosmetic companies like Iman Cosmetics, and Clairol was one of our companies that donated products to us, Cara Lee, and other companies to donate products to us. And we did full service makeovers prior to women having their job interviews. And in the course of about 2 or 3 years, we made over 3,000 women prior to them going on their job interviews. The wonderful thing about StyleWorks is that we allowed women to match their confidence that they got during the time that they did their, prior to coming to us, they went to job interviewing skills. And prior to coming to us, they would get their, they would get their, I'm losing my train of thought, I'm sorry. They would go to job interviewing skills. Then they would come to us 2 days before going to their interviewing, get their makeovers, and then they would get the jobs. And it was just a wonderful fluidity before they would go to their interviewing skills. And so that was a really wonderful thing that we did. After doing StyleWorks, the other thing that I would like to talk to you about is I'd love to talk to you about South Africa. My family and I went to South Africa about 5 years ago. Oprah Winfrey often talked to us about going to South Africa, and my husband would say, "Why in the world would you like to go to South Africa?" And I would say, Oprah's constantly telling us that we should go. And about 5 years ago, we finally took this trip around Christmas. And when we went, I'm so sorry that I'm losing my train of thought. When we went about 5 years ago, this never happens to me when I speak.
You're among family.
I'm among family. I'm tired. I'm traveling. I'm telling somebody I've been traveling. It's Thursday and I've traveled 3 times this week already. Let me start over. So, we went to South Africa about 5 years ago. And this part of the story is really remarkable. And we went on vacation. And for those, I don't know if anybody's gone to South Africa, but it's a pretty extraordinary country. The one thing that's extraordinary about it is that there is immense wealth in the country, coupled with horrific poverty. Clearly, because of apartheid, there is devastating poverty. People still live on about $1 a day. HIV/AIDS has devastated the country. The reason why we went is that Oprah Winfrey had, as you know, South Africa is like a second home to her. She has developed a school there, and she had been telling us we should visit this country. About 5 years ago, we finally got an opportunity to go, and we went really on vacation. While there, we enjoyed Johannesburg, beautiful country, took advantage of seeing the Apartheid Museum, visited Soweto, went into the shanty towns, We went to Cape Town. We went on safari. While there, though, something really bothered me. It was very difficult to be in that country and not give back. And so I called my old boss at UNICEF, and I said to him two things. I said, I really want to volunteer. The other thing is, we called to see if we could visit Mandela. And because we went at Christmas, the answer was no, that Madiba doesn't see people at Christmas. He only spends time with his family. So when we got that answer, we were very embarrassed. We were like, oops, we didn't know that we shouldn't have asked to see Madiba at Christmas. So a couple days later, we got a call that said that Madiba actually wanted to meet with us. And we said, does? And they said yes, that his grandchildren had overheard that Madiba had said no to meeting Chris Rock, and that they were so upset that they wanted to meet Chris Rock and to come out and meet. And so that we would have a 30-minute visit with Madiba and his grandkids and the wonderful Graça Michelle, who I had the privilege of actually spending time with years before at UNICEF when she wrote a groundbreaking report on the crisis of children in armed conflict for the UN. That visit, a 30-minute visit, ended up being a 2-hour visit, which was really the most extraordinary day, as you can imagine, of our lives. I have extraordinary pictures of my children actually running away from Madiba because he wanted them on his lap and they wouldn't sit on his lap. That same day after leaving Madiba's, it was actually his country home in his ancestral village. We actually were then granted a UNICEF village in a UNICEF visit, in an area called Deep Slip, which is a shantytown in Johannesburg. So, as you guys can imagine, besides my marriage and the birth of my children, that day is the best day of my life. Spending 2 hours with Madiba and going on a UNICEF visit in a village. On that day, and this, besides that day, reunifying child slaves, and this day, these two, this is another day that changed the trajectory of my life, and I'll tell you why. We visited with grannies who take care of orphan grandchildren. They take care of their orphan grandchildren because their children have died of HIV/AIDS. In shacks with no running water, no electricity. As we're visiting in these shacks that are the size of this table, my child, Lola, who's now 9, got a little claustrophobic and asked to go outside. When I came outside, she was playing with 3 little African children in the dirt with a rock. And I asked her, I said, Lola, what are you doing? She looked up, she says, Mommy, what do you think I'm doing? I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm playing in the dirt with a rock. And I'm having so much fun. And that just changed everything for me, because my child was playing with a little African child in the dirt with a rock, and I realized that all the stuff we give them, they don't need. She's playing in the dirt with a rock in Africa. The other thing is that a grandmother said to me, when I was leaving, she took care of 7 grandchildren. What are you going to do? I said, what do you mean, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? I said, what do you mean, what I'm going to do? She said, I'm sick of people coming here and taking pictures and leaving. What are you going to do? I said, what do you want me to do? She said, I want you to help us send our grandkids to school. And I said, okay, I'll come back. She said, psh, yeah, right. Well, I left with my kids, my family, and I went on with my vacation. But 3 months later, I returned to South Africa by myself. And 3 months later, I returned again. And now I run the Angel Art Project South Africa. And we employ grandmothers in an income-generating program. And we send 200 kids to school. And we put in 2 playgrounds. And we do a food program for grandmothers. And we do a feeding scheme for 500 kids. And we're continuing to build our programs because that grandmother called me up. And so that original visit to Africa with Lawrence changed the trajectory of my life. And I believe that service is one of the most extraordinary privileges that I can know on earth. It puts me in the most extraordinary circumstances. Every time I serve, I meet people that I would never meet. I go places that I would never go. I am astounded at what I do through service. Why am I here today? I had a brief, spaced out for a second. Sorry about that. But why am I here? Why am I staring at you? Why am I talking to you people? Because I serve. Why was I in Washington State last week with a group of white women that I'll never probably see again talking? You know, why do I go to Brooklyn, 3 days a week with youth that I take to South Africa with Journey for Change? Why did I last year take 5 kids who are descendants of African slaves to Ghana, where we partnered with 5 former Ghanaian child slaves, then take those kids, so 5 descendants of slaves from Brooklyn, partner them with 5 former Ghanaian child slaves, then the 10 of us went to Lake Volta, 10 hours outside of Accra, and spent 10 days with current child slaves and rescued 2 slaves. How did that happen? Only through service. Only through service. It's extraordinary. Service is extraordinary. So what do I say to you guys? Serve. What can you do? Volunteer. Whatever you want to do. 1 day a week. 1 day a month. 1 day a year. Walk in a walkathon. Donate your skills. What do? You a computer programmer? Are you an accountant? Are you a florist? Whatever you can do. My graphic artist, he's a graphic artist for his profession. So he does all my graphic art for free. One of my best friends is a web designer, so she does all my web design for free. She can't do anything else, but that's what she does. That's great. My florist, Sandra Parks, donates her flowers to me. That's what she does, plus a whole bunch of other stuff. Whatever you can do. When you have a profession that you can actually do something and you donate that, that is phenomenal. Exercise your consumer power. That is huge. You have a Target near you? Go there. Don't go to a competitor. They donate $3 million a week to their community and to where they do business. Go there. Product Red, they eradicate HIV/AIDS in Europe. So if you can buy red, do it. Fair trade, care about it. If you can buy a fair trade coffee, a fair trade tea, care about it. Care about the rugs you put in your house. Care that those looms weren't used by a child. That those fingers weren't a child's finger. That those sneakers weren't made by a kid. When you buy your gifts at Christmas, go on 1,000 villages and buy your gifts off of there. And care about the artisan and put money in the pocket of an artisan instead of a big consumer. When you do your Christmas cards, buy a UNICEF card. All of this matters. All of this is part of the village of giving. Donate. You don't have to make big donations. Literally. People often say to me, but Malaak, I can't write those $10,000 checks. You don't have to. You don't have to. I can't make the donations that Oprah makes. Oprah can't make the donations that Bill Gates can make. You don't have to. The world's nonprofits rely on small donations. The average donation is $4.20, the cost of a donut and a cup of coffee. You guys, the average donation is $4.20 in this country. not $10,000. If you thought it was, you're wrong. Think of your donations like you think of tithing to church. Regular and small. So volunteer, donate, exercise your consumer power. That's how we can all be a part of the global village of giving and serving. The best and the blessed of us must take care of the rest of us. If I get there before you do, I'm obligated to bore a hole and pull you through. Service is the rent we pay for living. Thank you. Any questions?
I'll ask one. When did you start bringing your children into the process of giving and sharing, and how did you make that bridge with them?
That's a very good question. I started talking about it from birth. So from birth, always having the conversation. But I started in the home, I started doing small things, probably from the age of like 2, 3. Easy ones around birthdays and Christmas. Get a gift, give a gift. So at Christmas, when presents come in, presents go out. So if you get 20 presents, we go to the playroom, you choose 20 presents, and we go give 20 presents away. We also, during the holidays, we go to soup kitchens, and we give food, we give food away. So we volunteer with God's Love We Deliver, which is a great one, at Thanksgiving and Christmas. We also do it through my Journey for Change program. They come with me. We deliver food all the time in Brooklyn, in the Bushwick neighborhood. But anyone can do it for Christmas, or you can go to your, your local soup kitchen. We also, for their birthdays, we ask for their friends to give a book with their gifts that we give away as well. So we put that on their birthday invitations to wrap a book, and then we give them away. So that's an easy one as well. I also bring my kids along with me on a lot of the trips. And oftentimes people have said to me, Malaak, don't you think you're showing them too many social ills early on? And I say no. These kids, I'd rather show them that most of the world, billion people live on $1 a day and live with no water, no electricity, in shacks any day before I want to show them one of these crazy, horrible videos of these lyrics that are in music, So my kids, I actually took Lola, who's 9, and we went on this trip last year, the one to Ghana, the child slavery. I took her, and she was 8. And I think that was an extraordinary privilege for her to be able to see that there's a little African child who looks just like her, who at the age of 8 was held in slavery. And that there's something that she can voice it. And that trip, the kids then came back, and we went to Washington, and they were able to advocate for the eradication of child slavery, and they visit schools to talk about it and educate school children on what they can do, age appropriate, to stop the practice. And there's lots of great websites now. There's a website, particularly for those of you guys who have girls, called Girls Up. It's a great website for girls making change, for girls in the world.